Hey guys, welcome to Absolute Training Nutrition. So today's guest is Heather Wynn. I know you've got married recently, and so your name's changed. But so Heather is an expert regarding women and weight loss and mindset and getting yourself in the right place. But I just thought it'd be really good to get an opinion on a few things from Heather. Long story, we did a nutrition courses and stuff together in the past. So I know that she really knows her stuff. So Heather, over to you. Do you want to give an introduction?
Yeah, of course. So hi guys, thank you Wayne for having me here. So yeah, I always hate it when people say expert because it's like, it just never feels, you're never going to get there, are you? You're always going to be like,
Yeah.
But I've had, I would say, extensive experience. So yeah, I can't believe that I'm actually saying that I've been a coach for over 20 years. It's scary, but truth. So yeah, I've been a coach for over 20 years. Kind of dabbled here, there and everywhere really, but yeah, I kind of found that my feet landed in obviously women's health, because that's how I am one, and obviously got experience of being one as well. And recently, in the past probably 10 years, I've been delving more into the mindset of things. Psychology, I'm now actually doing my psychology degree as well, so I'm going to go into that further hopefully in the next 10 years as well. But yeah, so I've written a book in that time as well. I'm not very good at plugging things like this, I'll have to say.
Plug it, mate. Plug it.
I know, yeah. But I have written a book. It's called Enough Already: Finding Happiness Now in a World that is Trying to Sell You Perfection Later. And it's basically what the title says. It's all about, well, we'll talk about, the things today, but it's basically calling out a lot of the bullshit in the wellness industry and in the fitness industry. Yeah, so that's basically me really. I've done, as I said, we've done courses together in the past. I think we're both of the mindset that you're continually learning and continually pushing yourself. So yeah. I certainly am of that. I will never stop learning. Yeah, so that's basically who I am. Hello.
Hello. Do you know what? Before we dive into the questions, I know this is a bit of a hot topic, and every fit pro in the world at the moment seems to have an opinion on it. But I saw you posting about the Gymshark post with the lady that's wearing the Gymshark wear, and the amount of comments, negative comments, because this woman wasn't a fitness model, was just wow. That you realise the stupidity level of some people. However, if you go to Gymshark, guys, if you go to Gymshark, look at the post, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Go into the comments, but read Gymshark's replies, because they handled that so well, and they actually made sure they replied to every comment, good and bad. And I think for a company that size, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah,
did not let it lie. It's brilliant. And that's exactly what we're kind of like, I want to get across today, because there's such a misconception in fitness in general that, fitness is for fit people and then everything else is weight loss.
Yeah.
And I've always been of the opinion that if you really want to lose weight, you got to get fit to lose weight. You've got to be in that mindset to lose weight. You've got to be fit to lose weight. It's like when people say, I'm going to start running to get fit. That's kind of ridiculous. You got to get fit to run. Yeah. And I truly believe weight loss is the same. So if we kind of dive in, Heather, and go through, your opinions on weight loss in general, what's your thoughts on that?
So, I mean, this is where, when I said to you in a message yesterday that I could go off on tangents, I apologize if I do go off on tangents, because it's so hard for me to stick on one topic. It's because there's so many, it's so complex. And I think, Wayne, a lot of the issues stem from people trying to oversimplify things. And in one sense, I know we're going to get into the old calories in versus calories out, and I know that you want to touch on that. So what I would say is, let's get right in there to start with and say, we all know that that's what the mechanism behind weight loss is. It's calories in, energy out. It's a balance. Okay. I think we all understand that. Well, I mean, I'm saying that maybe some people still don't, but I think we understand that that's the actual mechanism behind weight loss. What needs to happen is this. I think the problems occur is that then people then go, okay, cool. So that's it. Let's go and do that. And then we're like, but there's so many other factors that are going to affect whether or not that happens. And it's completely multifaceted and it's so complex, and I think people don't really understand the complexities behind that. And it's not necessarily the mechanisms that are complex, it's what needs to happen in order for that to happen, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think we get stuck in that. Well, it's simple, it is simple, but it's definitely not easy to do. So we could go down the route of, I mean, I kind of have a lot of merit in the biopsychosocial model. So you've got your biological factors, the social factors, and the psychological factors. And if you were to do like a kind of a mind map on on all of those three, I mean, you could go on for hours. You literally really could. There's that many issues. It's so complex. And I think that's why I'm going down the route that I'm going down, because over the time that I've been a coach, it's become very, very evident to me that it is definitely not easy. And that's the reason why we still struggle the way that we struggle in society. If it was so simple as to just eat less, do more, then everyone will be able to do that, right? It would be like, okay, I know what I'm going to do now, I'm going to go and do it. It's not the fact that we don't know what to do, it's actually helping people to do it. So yeah, general weight loss, it's kind of, I think it's a little bit of a, you can't really have a simple conversation about weight loss because there's so many different directions.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's down to a personal thing. So like me and yourself could probably go, right, for the next 12 weeks, we're going to eat chicken and broccoli, run on the treadmill, hit the gym, and have no problem with it at all. But then for other people, there's other issues, even like you said, like, these economic issues, affordability, being able to afford all these foods and, healthier foods. And it's really funny because speak to Dr. Mendoza, he was talking about, he's really gone down change and behavior of change. Because I always say to all my clients when they first come in the door that they say, are you going to give me a diet plan? I'm like, no. I know, I was expecting you would give me a diet plan. Well, one, I'm not a dietitian, so I'm not allowed to prescribe you a diet plan, but I can give you advice on nutrition. But what I want you to do is I want to get a better understanding of what your relationship with food is in the first place. And then once I get that understanding, it's easier for me to move forward than it is to go, okay, I want you eating this and I want you eating that. Because you're literally setting people up to fail.
Yeah.
And I think you're absolutely right when you're talking about that. Everybody at the moment, if you went on Facebook now and said, I need to lose a few pounds, you will get, everybody now becomes an expert on nutrition.
Yeah.
All I did was this and all I did was that. And I think you're absolutely right. I think the calories in, calories out is a very, very simplified. And for, I don't know what you think, but I know, for 70% of the population, it really is that simple. Probably a bit more than that, but there are a lot of other people that will struggle. So those that lose weight quite easily and have no problem with dieting or dropping weight, they can't understand why their overweight friend struggles to lose weight.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think it's just a difference. So we're all individuals, right? And we know, we kind of accept that we all have individual characteristics in every other area of life. Whether it's how we live our life, our preferences, our hobbies, our everything else it's like, well, it's accepted that we are different. But then when it comes to weight loss or fat loss, when it comes to losing fat, it's almost like, well, everyone's the same. Why can't we all do it the same?
Yeah.
And everyone thinks that it's like the diet plan thing. Yeah, I do exactly the same. I'd never write anyone out a diet plan. I think even if we were to do that, it's still complex, because if you had 10 people and they all ate exactly the same, they're all going to respond differently to it. Even when we kind of look at it, we're changing the macros and we're obviously doing it on an individual basis, they're still not going to be guaranteed to actually get the same results as someone else that was doing it, because we all respond differently.
Yeah.
And again, if you're looking at the actual biological and the genetic issues, yeah, there are some things that can actually affect how we lose fat, or how quickly or how easy it is for us to lose fat. And things like that, we don't really tend to give much credit to, which I think is bizarre. It's like, yeah, if you were to go online and someone was to ask for advice, no one really goes down into the actual nitty-gritty of who that person is. So yeah, you've got the social, economic, financial access, support systems, and you've got the psychological, the emotional, the childhood experiences. I don't know if you've heard about the ACE studies, the childhood adverse experiences, which has got a massive impact on adult health. Really interesting. Sleep patterns, relationship with food, likes, dislikes, hobbies, you know, all of these things make us who we are as a person, but they're also going to affect our habits and how we actually are physically as well. So I think we need to kind of really start to look at fat loss as a real individual approach. And I think part of the problem with that is, gosh, dare I say this, is that it's not easy to do quickly. So, I mean, obviously you can go down the route of whether coaches who have done a weekend course are qualified enough to actually do that, you know, are we actually qualified enough to dig down into people's lifestyle and dig down into their emotions and things like that. But also, it's not easy to do. You can't wrap it up in a nice little box and present it as a 6, 8, 12-week program. You just can't do that. You've got to work with someone very, very closely for a period of time. And then I've always said, if it's out of your remit, then refer it out, you know, and it's these kind of things as an industry. I think we really have to accept that these are the ways that we're going to really help people, by not kind of standing up and going, beating our chest and going, I'm the best, I can do this, I can help everyone. And then you've got a client and they don't lose weight, or they're not losing weight as quickly as you would want them to. You kind of feel that some coaches take that as like a personal failure. And yes, you have to build that relationship together to make it work, but there's also going to be things that you just don't get, you know, that you just don't understand as a coach. So you kind of refer out, and all of these little other things that might be affecting this client, you can actually help them deal with, rather than kind of going, no, you must be eating too much. And sorry, so another tenet, I think one of the things is that when we're looking at the calories in, calories out, and we say that we all know that that's the mechanism. So, you know, when you go online and you see people say, my client isn't losing fat, and then everyone kind of jumps on going, they're lying to you. They're eating more. And it's like, well, yes, we know that, obviously, otherwise they would be losing weight. We get that. The problem is why? Why are they eating too? Why are they not being truthful, you know? And that's when we need to kind of to dig down even deeper. And that's like the analogy of the iceberg. On top of it, we know that they're obviously eating too much. But what's happening for those behaviors to stay like that? Why are they not changing?
Yeah, I think that's a massive part that, you know, unless you're working with the right coaches, I see that a lot, you know, when people say, I've got this, you know, in the forums, people are, my client's not losing weight, I've said this, I've said that, and they're going, well, they're lying, they're underestimating their calories, they're eating more than they're recording. And I'm like, all these things that you're probably right, but there's going to be a reason why. Is it their ability to track it, don't understand it? Or is it just simply the fact that they've got so much else going on in their life that really it's not a priority? They think it's a priority, but they haven't prioritized it. There's a difference, isn't there, between like, you know, I need to do that and doing it are two different things. And I agree with you. I can spend months working with somebody just getting them to understand food, nutrition and diet before we even start actually worrying about what they're eating.
Yeah.
You know, you can actually, as a coach, I remember when people are coming to a coach as well, that anxiety level's already up there. And us coaches, we can add to anxiety level when we start saying, well, you know, this is what we did with Mrs. Smith and she did this and she did that. And look at Mrs. Smith now, she looks amazing. Yeah. And that person now thinks, well, brilliant, but I'm not Mrs. Smith. I don't know if I can achieve that. The pressure's on me even more so to now I've got to now do as good as Mrs. Smith or better than Mrs. Smith. Otherwise I'm going to look like a failure. So you've added even more anxiety to that person.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think half the time as well for the clients, so they're looking at it from their point of view, is that they literally don't understand why they're not getting the results. They don't know. So even if you have that conversation with them and say to them, right, I think you probably are underestimating how much you're eating. And even if they were to admit that, which is hard, you know, it's really hard to kind of say, all right, I'm not being 100% truthful. It's really difficult for them to come to you and say, all right, well, maybe I am eating. But half the time they don't realise. And there's some of there, so they might have their hunger cues are all over the place. Their leptin levels, you know, all of these, again, biological, the reward system pathways in the brain. That's something that really interests me, and hopefully I'm going to do more on in the future. But it's like, we talk about the reward system in the brain, so sex, money, rock and roll, but we know that those things, they are the reward circuitries in the brain. We understand that relates to that, but then with food we kind of go, oh yeah, but you should be able to control it with food. Well, hang on a second, why? It's one of the most fundamental biological processes out there, that we have reward systems when it comes to food, otherwise we'd die. That's what it's there for. So with some people that can become dysregulated, so they are naturally just they're hungrier, and they go for food, and they go for higher calorie food, and they might not even realize that that's happening. So again, it's so there's some reasonings behind it that no one would ever really be able to figure out just by having a conversation with someone. Sometimes if you really feel that someone's really struggling, then I would always say get them to go and see someone, get them to refer out and go and get some testing done. But I think, again, that can be a little bit of some, not being, don't want to sound awful, but again, that can be an excuse sometimes. It's very rare that you'll find that, but it can happen. That's my point. We don't know that from someone that's just going to come and say to us on the internet, oh, I can't lose weight. It doesn't mean to say that it's something simple,
Yeah, like go off and get all your hormones tested and get all the full blood test and come back to me. You're right. I mean, I in 20 years, I've sent somebody once to get a blood profile, and that was just purely because, my gut was telling me that this person was not lying. There was something underlying, and there was something underlying. So we found it that way.
But so we're just going to say as well, even though we're talking about the reward systems in the brain and the neuropsychology of it, we even then know that it's not the physical that's affecting, it's the secondary effect. So that reward pathway is making them hungrier, so then they're going to eat more food. So the actual underlying principle of eating more than they are telling us should still be there. We should still see the evidence of it, because it's not there, and the hormones are the same thing really. It's not magically, it's not magically making us store fat. It's the process of wanting us to find more food and eat more food. Do you see what I mean? So it's that the actual outward behaviors should still be obvious. They should still be coming and saying, I'm trying to eat less, but I just can't, and for them to really struggle to keep their calories under a certain level. That's when you kind of look, well, maybe something else is going on. It's the drivers behind that hunger that we need to look at.
Yeah, absolutely. Because that really leads us nicely when we're touching on the hormone thing. Because and you probably as a coach as well, I've heard it when people say, it's my hormones. I struggle to lose weight because of my hormones. Generally, not being horrible, but it's generally women who will say like, it's my hormones. Men will just normally blame it on their laziness and beer drinking, but women will just kind of go, I think it's my hormones, it's making me struggle to lose weight. Where do you sit on that? I'm not obviously asking you to dive into like hormones and weight loss, but as a coach, how relevant is it, do you think?
So again, I think so Instagram and Facebook are full of these snapshots of hormones don't have anything to do with fat loss, and it's all very much, you get the two camps, don't you? You get the ones that are either, oh my gosh, it's everything to do with hormones, or absolutely nothing to do with hormones. And again, I think my opinion is that there's a massive grey. Everything's nuanced, isn't it? There's nuance in everything. And I think when we're talking about it, so let's go from a woman's point of view, and the common ones that I kind of deal with is definitely that they feel that the monthly cycle hormones kind of thing that can affect. So we'll talk about that one first. And it definitely does have an effect on your body, but it's again secondary. So it shows up presents itself as water retention. So it's not fat gain. You're not getting on the scales at the time of the month and thinking, holy crap, I've put 4 pounds of fat on. It's water retention because of the balance of the estrogen and progesterone. It's balancing, and it does mess with your head. I mean, seriously, it really does. And it's still now, even to me who knows about it, everything's tracked and know when to expect it. So for those that don't, when they get on the scale at that time of the month, it's like, oh my god, holy crap, what's happened? but it is just water retention. So again, it's not actual fat gain, it's the secondary mechanisms behind it. But for the clients that really don't understand that, it's scary, you know, and they're like, oh my gosh, my hormones are driving this fat gain. And it's not. It's kind of just explaining to them that actually it's the secondary mechanism behind that. But then, so looking at the hormone kind of menopause as well, when you get into the older ages, and I know we're going to talk about the older ages, I think it's, again, similar kind of things. It's the hormones don't actually randomly create fat stores from nowhere. It's the driving behind the behavior. So when you get older, obviously they've got the redistribution of fat in menopause as well. So you tend to find that you might store it more around your belly than if you've been a pear shaped, you've had it around your ass. You might suddenly look in the mirror and think, oh my gosh, I'm getting a belly. So again, in your mind, that will trick you into thinking I've gained weight because it's just redistributing. You're not used to seeing yourself like that. You're not used to seeing this kind of punch at the front. If you look behind you, you probably actually be thinking, oh, my ass looks quite good because it's just changed where it is. But I think with the menopause and the age-related hormones, I think it's this, we all know that weight management gets harder as we get older, right? I think we all accept that. But I don't think that anyone really has an actual answer as to why that happens. But I feel that, again, it's the driving behind the behavior. So as you get older, we tend to, or some people might tend to become a little bit less active. Their training intensity might drop, their training volume might drop, their NEAT might drop. We just change. Again, we change, our habits become different. There's no possible way that we can say that our training intensity is going to be exactly the same from when we're 21 all the way through to 60s, even 70s. There's just no way that we can all say that. And I think one of the big ones as well in menopause definitely is sleep. So it can really mess with your sleep, really kind of makes your sleep habits change. You can be waking up with the hot flushes and things. And we all know, again, that sleep massively then affects appetite. So that can be then driving your hunger the next day. It can be reducing your motivation to train because you're tired. So it's those secondary behaviors. So these things do have an effect. Hormones definitely do have an effect, but not in a primary, they're just going to automatically create fat from nowhere. It's about what it's making you do.
Yeah, they're not the cause, but they definitely have an effect. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really cool because it's the same kind of opinion. I truly believe in hormonal health, you know, but I don't think you just hit nail on the head. You know, as we get older, we retire, we're not as active as we do, and then all these things, all these factors all melt into one pot, and we think, oh, it's because of my hormones. It's actually, you're doing a lot less than you were doing when you're 25. This is why, like, when I get women come in, I always ask them, when would you think you were in your, you looked your best, you were most confident? And most, if they're 45 plus, will say, I was 23, 24. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, so you're talking about a 23, 24-year-old girl over a 45-year-old woman who's since then had 3 children, 2 divorces. Do you know what I mean? It's like, if you look at all your factors that have led up to this point, that you're a different person. Yeah. The 25 you is a completely different person to the 50-year-old you, completely different in many ways. And I think, so I'm glad. It's really funny because everybody I've spoken to so far, I've kind of like the same opinion that, it's not your hormones' fault, but there are other factors that definitely have a role in it.
Yeah. Definitely.
So I know we touched on it earlier, and I know you said, like, it's not as simple as calories in versus calories out, and you said about that it's been oversimplified, and I would totally agree with you. It is really, really easy to say to somebody, eat less, move more, that'd be 50 quid, please. That's really, really easy. But so there's a guy, I don't know if you heard of him, a guy called Dr. Michael Greger. He's an American. He wrote a book called How Not to Diet, and also a health book on how not to die. Very, very good, very, very evidence-based, which is what I like, which is really from an actual medical practitioner. It's quite good to see. I can't listen to him because he has the most annoying voice in the world. However, his book is really good, but he talks about, like, calories, and that, in a lab, a calorie is a calorie, but obviously in real life, it's not that way. But in a study, they showed that they could actually, in a randomized study, it can pull several people into, from different backgrounds, male, female, older, younger, all sorts. put them in a room and exercise them and feed them. No other external factors, just literally that. And every single person, regardless of age, sex, whatever, would lost weight.
Yeah.
Everyone.
Yeah.
So it kind of proves that from that point of view, calories in versus calories out is real.
Mm-hmm.
But then when you then look at what's going on once they leave that building. So if we wanted to all, this is where like things like, you know, weight loss farms and all these like hotels that people go away to, they'll get dramatic results for that week because the food's put in front of them. They woke up every day and they're exercised.
Yeah.
They're not dealing with the kids, job, husband, wife, bills. They're not dealing with that. It's 1 week of them. So they get this dramatic effect. And then when they go back to a normal life, all that weight kind of comes back.
Yeah.
And I think you're absolutely right. You know, I still think calories are a massive player in you being able to drop the weight.
Yeah.
And being able to, you know, learning how to track it properly. But it can't just be about that, can it?
No, I mean, it kind of goes back to what we were saying before, really. I think it's a bit like the hormone thing. That is definitely the what needs to happen in order for you to lose fat. The calories in versus calories out. We just cannot. That's what works. But yeah, you're absolutely right in the fact that whoever lives in that environment where everything's there for you, there's absolutely no external factors impacting you at all. And that's where the complexity comes in. And that's basically what we've been talking about the whole time as coaches. That's where our skill set comes into practice. And I don't know if you remember when I did the show Obesity Year to Save My Life with Sky One, and I had a client, and it was 8, they call them contestants, which sounds like a game show, which is awful. But and I had Claire, and it was a longer term process. So we kind of saw these people over the course of, I think it was 10 months in the end. And it was basically if you've seen it, anyone, it's the documentary about shedding weight. So it's almost like a bit of a version of The Biggest Loser, but they tried to make it out like it was more of a lifestyle thing, and it just wasn't. But yeah, we gave them the task of helping these people to shed half their body weight in a year.
Yeah.
And me and Claire, we did that. She lost over 10 stone in 10 months, and which is just around about half her body weight. And all of them did. I think nearly every single one did, because they were in that environment where everything wasn't done for them. So we didn't cook for them, but we monitored absolutely everything. And I was with her daily. Literally, I was traveling to Liverpool on a daily basis to be with her. And she was taken out of her life. So they all had, she went to work, but she had kind of more time off. Everything was different. It was almost like she was planted into almost like the Truman Show a little bit, where it's like in this false little world. And you've got a PT there, you've got someone looking at your food, you've got a psychologist on hand, you've got a TV crew following you, for God's sake. You know, everything's what more motivation can you want than a TV crew following you around, filming you? And it was great. So of course she did it. Of course she lost weight. She lost a massive amount of weight, but unfortunately, the weight went back on, as it did with all of them, as it does with most of these shows. And it's not because of the fact that they dieted too quick. I think we know now that some of the studies are showing that fast weight loss doesn't necessarily mean bad weight loss. It doesn't really matter. It's about what happens after.
Yep.
So we know that you can lose the weight however quickly you want, and in whatever way you want, but what happens afterwards is going to determine what happens to the rest of your life, basically. So that was a prime example of what happened there. Is that we left her, all of our support services were taken away within the space of one day, and it was like, well, what do we do now? Unfortunately, and if I could go back now, I would put my foot down a little bit more with that, but I just didn't have the authority to be able to say at the time, because I was, just coming on as a coach. And they needed a lot more. They needed a lot more psychological support. All of them had different issues that needed working on. And that was the reason that they were there in the first place, It wasn't just there because they really liked food. There was so many other things going on.
Yeah, and I love that you touched on that, because you can see then it all it does is qualifies what you said earlier about that, and the same with that study where they just basically put people in a room and fed them and exercised them and then they lost weight. that how much your behavior and other factors have a massive role. So when you said right at the beginning, where if it's not as simple as calories in versus calories out, because there's so many other factors. And if anything, all these shows and these studies, all it proves is that is absolutely true. You know, if you can get a grasp of understanding why you need to change, what you need to change, and how you need to change it, I think most coaches would get better results with clients if they looked at, right, we're going to find out how can we make this as easy as possible for you without adding any extra stress, and looking at some of the factors that, you know, your coping mechanisms on your day-to-day right now before you even talk about food. And, you know, so for me, that's why I always like to get an understanding of where that person's at. What's your life situation like? What's your home situation like? You know, how do you work? You know, if they're nurses, you know, oh, I'd like you to eat 6 times a day. Well, I'll be lucky if I get a chance to have lunch today. Completely pointless. You're setting that person up to fail. I love that you touched on that. And I think the behavior side and people's lifestyle, and I don't mean like smoking, drinking, eat. I just mean generally what's going on in people's lives has a massive factor. So, you know, would you agree that, you know, if you had one piece of advice to drop for somebody, it's like to really have a look at themselves, what their factors are, what their stress factors are, and try and understand them before they start diving into eating, you know, diets.
Absolutely. Yeah, I totally. So what you were saying, I just want to touch upon that. I think as an industry as well, as coaches, not everyone definitely, but as almost like a broad stereotype, I feel that we do have a little bit of an issue with privilege, is that we kind of expect that everyone's going to be at the same starting point as we are. And actually, we are all on totally different playing fields with completely different hurdles and obstacles that we're trying to get over. Yeah. And many people in this world have got serious struggles, whether it be, again, socioeconomic, whether they've had really horrendous childhoods, whether they've had illnesses, psychological, mental health is a massive one. All of these things can affect. And I think we kind of come into helping people with this idea that we're all on this level playing field. And I think coaches definitely need to acknowledge that we're not. And there are going to be things in your client's history that will affect their success in fat loss. There's no way around it. So I think it's making sure that you've got a really good understanding of the client in front of you and their history. And again, if you feel once talking to your client that there are things there that possibly need some little bit of an extra help with, refer out before they come back to you. You know, it's just going straight into tracking the calories and doing exercise. It might work short term, but that's where you're going to come into problems later on when they rebound later on, because those underlying issues are going to be there.
Yeah.
So definitely make sure that we're looking at them as a whole person.
Well, the same way a coach really shouldn't be giving advice on hormones and stuff like that unless they're trained in it, or they've been a nurse, or have some kind of medical background to understand what hormones is all about. The same reason, unless you're a psychologist, you shouldn't be doing the psychologist side. You can help people with change and identifying factors for them. But again, it's all coming down to staying in your lane. If you recognize that, thinking, actually, you know what, this is beyond my remit. This person needs more than I can give right now. But I think people are scared to refer out because they're afraid of, I don't know, they might lose the client, or it might not work for that client, and they feel that you've just, I've tried before, and clients, and I've had people say, are you trying to get rid of me? I'm like, no, I'm not trying to get rid of you. I'm trying to help you. But what you require right now is out of my field of expertise. I know enough to get you to here, but you need somebody who specializes in that. Just like a GP, isn't it? If you went to GP and said, I think my hip's fallen off, he wouldn't go, give me a minute, mate, I'll go and get my screwdriver. He'll send you to a specialist.
Exactly.
So, I think ourselves as coaches, we need to recognize when it's like, this is where we fall. And I know a lot of us have trained, and like yourself, you're doing your psychology, you're going to have levels of expertise that other coaches don't have, but even you will know when you go, okay.
Yeah, no, I don't. I even now, I don't work with people on anything other than fitness and nutrition life, like basic lifestyle change.
Yeah.
And I think you're absolutely right that the amount of times that I've referred people out are so many, because it's not fair on them. And I think, yeah, a lot of coaches have this fear that, oh my God, it's going to mean that I'm seen as not good enough. And we've got to get over that. We really have. And it means also, again, is building bridges between the disciplines. So again, this multidisciplinary thing, I think, is going to become hopefully the future of the health and fitness industry, because we've got to start to work together with other specialists. We're doing that a little bit more with like physios and that kind of thing, but we have to do that again with mental health. Unfortunately, whether or not the funding's there to do it, that's the problem. But people like Gary Mendoza, who's offering so specific toolkits and specific skill sets about behavior change and readiness to change, that's something that can really impact. Even if someone's absolutely, they've had a perfect upbringing, they've got a perfect physical body, everything's ready to go on the starting line, but they're not ready to change, that can impact as well. So it's kind of building our toolbox and boxes, and by getting expertise like Gary and like other people to kind of provide that for the health and fitness industry, and hopefully within the next 5 years I can kind of provide some stuff too. Those kind of things we need to fill our toolboxes up with, really, in order to become better coaches.
I think it gives you a much stronger point of view. It's like, it happens in the medical world where you've got more different disciplines that will get involved in a case. And if I hate the word personal trainer, I hate it. But if I could change anything, that's one thing I would bloody change. But, I think as a coach, if we want to be taken seriously as experts in our field, then we have to respect the experts in their field and stop trying to be a psychologist and be a hormone expert and be a medical practitioner. Understand where your remit is. And I think when we've referred clients before, that client's always come back, but that client will come back with their friend, because I've just basically massively increased their confidence in us, because we did what was best by them, not because we're trying to make money. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I think that's a massive thing. So look, I want to finish on one thing. I know we spoke before we start recording about age-related weight loss, and again, the reason it kind of brings us to the hormone thing again as well. But like how women particularly will say that when I was younger, I found it really easy to lose weight, and as I've got older, I found it harder. And I know we touched on the hormones and stuff like that. Do you reckon that's actually, if we ignore that side, do you think that's an actual thing, or do you think that's just something that we're just making up in our own minds?
What, that we find it harder as we get older?
Yeah.
No, I definitely do think it's a thing, and I think I read a study a couple of weeks ago actually, and I think one of the in the abstract, I think one of the first sentences is agreed that weight management becomes harder as we get older, and I can't remember where it was, but it was to see it. I think it's recognised is that it's something that becomes increasingly harder as we get older. But as I said before, I don't really feel that we actually have an answer as to why that happens. I think again it just comes down to kind of the theme of the day, really, which is the secondary behaviour, what happens as a result. So our behaviours change, our habits change, what we enjoy doing change. We, like you said before, you hit the nail on the head, we become different people to who we were when we were in our 20s, and that means naturally that we're going to change physically as well. And you've also got other things like, obviously, lean body mass reduces as we get older, and thus meaning that fat mass increases. It's like the total opposite of what we want to happens. Biologically, it naturally happens, and we can train to kind of maintain as much as we can, but it happens, and I think it's just something that we have to maybe not accept, but understand a little bit more that's going to happen. And I think this comes down to the image of ourselves as well. I think a lot of it comes down to when we talked right at the beginning, so kind of done full circle about that Gymshark picture and understanding what's normal and what's not normal. And I think the social media doesn't really help, because we are constantly poured over images of these ideal lean bodies that often have been photoshopped, filtered, you know, edited, angled to the life of them. You know, and we kind of are in a society now where we think that that's what's normal, and it's not. And hopefully we're starting to turn a bit of a circle on that by brands like Gymshark, by models standing up and putting unposed pictures on, and by people just going, hang on a second, that's not what we look like in real life. And I think to kind of take that idea and put it into this getting old, how should we age? You know, can we not age disgracefully and just be happy with that, you know, and be happy with who we are as we get older, still maintaining our habits. But if your body shape changes a little bit as you get older, who cares, really? You know, we don't expect ourselves to still have the body of a 30-year-old even when we're 60. And I think that's okay. It's just not, it's nature, you know, that's just how we are. But to kind of reiterate, I think it's important for us to maintain those habits health-wise as much as anything else, and for your own mindset as well, for your mental health. I think it's really important to keep doing what you're doing, but also accept at the same time that you will change as you get older. It's just the way the world is.
Yeah, it's funny because the reason I say that, the age-related one came up because a client insisted that her age wasn't a factor, that it was all in her head. She was saying that because, you know, she feels that she should be able to do what she could do 10 years ago. It's only 10 years and she should be able to do all that. And no matter what I said and how I tried to approach it and say to her, look, you know, you have to accept that you're 10 years older and you haven't exercised in quite a while and this hasn't been your focus. You know, this isn't just, it's not just something you can bounce back into, you know. And she really insisted that it was all in her head. That was the reason she couldn't lose weight. Obviously, it took a little while, but she started to understand that, you know, unfortunately, like you just said, age gets to all of us, and you know.
Yeah. I kind of admire a mindset on that. You know, that
determination.
Me too. It was kind of, it's good, but also I think, like with everything, I think if you could say one of the biggest jobs of a coach is it's managing your clients' expectations, and that's exactly what you are having to do there. And I think it is that. It's not discouraging people from saying, I want to be able to go and do what I used to do. It's like, great, well, let's work towards that. But it's also managing their expectations about A, how easy it is to get there again, and B, how much of a challenge it is going to be doing it 10 years older than you were, you know.
So we get people to come in and they'll say, I want a six-pack. And I go, cool. Have you had a six-pack before? No, I've never had a six-pack. Okay. So if I explain to you what you're going to have to go through to get that six-pack, and then we'll come to, and when you literally go through how they're going to have to diet, how they have to train, how much, you know, how much effort they're going to have to put in, and what they're going to have to sacrifice in their everyday life. When you really lay it out to them, they go, yeah, I don't think it's a six-pack I want. I'm like, you know, because again, like you said, the Instagram models make it look so easy. And yes, some people are just naturally lean and can eat and drink and do what they like and still stay ripped and whatever. But, you know, that percentage is very, very small.
It is. That's exactly what my book pretty much talks about, Wayne. It's that whole kind of idea of this, everyone, this ideal body is achievable for everyone, and that it really doesn't take that much to get it. And I've had clients in the past still do to this day who say they want to, and they'll come and they'll have this picture and they'll say, I really want to look like that. And you're like, okay, fair enough. Never even mind that that's a completely different person. But, you know, anyway, let's take this abstract picture and create you into it. But I think it's outlining that, yes, in theory, anyone can have that amount of that level of leanness. It's just a level of leanness at the end of the day. But what you have to sacrifice in order to do that, and especially for younger girls, and it's when you start getting into the nitty-gritty saying, right, well, you're never going to be able to go out and have spontaneous cocktail nights. You're never going to be able to go out and have pizzas that aren't tracked. You're never going to be able to go out and do any of these fun things that make life, you know, make life worth living. And I think once you kind of, again, manage their expectations about what they are going to have to do that, it becomes not something that they actually want to prioritize anymore. And I think I certainly wouldn't.
I've always said to people, unless you're going to be standing on stage in your underpants in 15 weeks, then that's a different story altogether. But, you know, if it's just because you just think that's what the ideal is of fitness, then let me break it down for you in real terms. And then most people I still to this day have never had one person going, "Yep, sounds awesome. I'm in. How do I do it?" Why would you? I love it that you brought in the photo, mate. I tell you what, I love it when people bring the photo. I'd like to look like this. What? So you want to be 10 years younger and a foot taller?
Yeah.
You know, your body genetic makeup isn't even the same, but you want to look like this person.
Like longer levers, like their arms are
absolutely,
half the size, and the legs are, you're just like, it's no.
Okay, I'm good, but I'm not that good.
I know.
Yeah. So I know you mentioned your book. Why would somebody want to buy your book? Who's it for, and why would they want to buy it?
So basically, for those so my client base that I've just talked about, really, for those, I mean, there's no age limit on it. I've had people read it from early teens right the way up through, retirement ages, and they've all loved it. And it's basically for, I would say, women, because I'm writing to a female audience. But again, I've had a lot of male coaches read it actually, and they get a lot from it because they take it to and implement with their female clients.
Yeah.
But it's basically for anyone that's getting a little bit tired of the old, everyone needs to look this way, and be able to wear a nice little Gymshark 2 set and be able to walk on the set of a fitness magazine, whilst also being able to go out and live their best life, because it just can't happen, and it doesn't happen ordinarily. And I think it's for those people that are really kind of ready to almost step off the diet treadmill but don't know how to do it. And it's definitely not this is going to fix everything. It's almost like a stepping stone. If you're ready to get away from that diet mentality where you're always hating on yourself, you think you always need to be something more and you don't feel enough, then read the book, and that hopefully will kind of add to your stepping stone of where you go next. And where you go next, it's completely up to you, but it's almost like a stepping stone and it'll give you that option to say, well, what actually do I really want from my life?
And they can still get that on Amazon, can't they?
Oh yeah, it's still on Amazon now. Yeah. So go on, enough already, and it's under the name of Heather Wynn. But I am now Heather Lily on my social media, just to confuse everyone. But
so Heather, what I'll do is, obviously after the call, send me over all your links and details. And what we'll do, guys, is we'll attach the links. So if you want to go and check out Heather's book, which I strongly recommend you do, or check out her site, or what she's doing. Do you know what? Thank you so much for today, mate. It's good to catch up. It's good to catch up as well. It's been a while.
Yeah, it is. I know it really is. I can't believe how long it's been. We were saying, weren't we? It must be. Oh, anyway. Yeah.
And do you know what? And I'm not just saying this. It's not me being Mr. Flirty, but you just don't look like you've aged at all, man. So one of us is getting something wrong.
No, thank you. That's nice. Well, you don't either at all. I honestly have to say you don't look like you've changed. It could be like
grey. It's the grey. Just to hide the grey. Just do that.
Good lighting as well. Front lighting.
That's what it is, mate. It's all about lighting.
Yeah, angles. Thank you. Thank you so much.
No problem at all, mate. I'm going to stop recording now, mate. Guys, check out the podcast. Check out the video. Leave comments. And also check out the other guys that I've been speaking to. Thanks so much for today.